Self-Destruct and Explosion are the strongest moves in Pokemon. They're 200 and 250 base power respectively, making them stronger than everything except a select few Z moves. But there's a surprising amount of moves that can rival that kind of power, so that's what today's video is about. Good morning, fellas, and welcome back to Me Plays Games. My name is Matt, and today we'll look at some of the strongest moves Pokemon has to offer, specifically ones that can be at least 200 power under the right conditions. Later on, I'll show you how to do 2 billion damage in one hit. Alright, let's get started. The first moves I wanted to talk about are some of my favorites to mess around with, Stored Power and its Dark-type clone, Power Trip. They start at 20 base power, but every time you boost your stats, they gain another 20 power for each stage you gain. Accuracy and evasion boost count as well, so that's 7 stats in total. If you somehow manage to max them all out of +6, 20 power times 7 stats times 6 stages per stat is 840. Add on the 20 you started with, and these moves can have up to 860 power. These moves are pretty situational though, because you need to spend at least one turn setting up before they're at least decently strong. Calm Mind raises the user's special attack and special defense by 1 stage each. 2 stat boost means an extra 40 power for stored power, bringing it up to 60. Then Calm Mind special attack boost also kicks in, making the move effectively 90 power. You know what other move is 90 power? Psychic, which starts at 90 right out of the box. But if you can spend more time setting up, these moves can spiral out of control. In fact, thanks to stored power and the ability Speed Boost, Espather was banned in Generation 9 OU. Speed Boost raises its speed by 1 stage every turn, so stored power passively gets stronger as the battle goes on. It can also learn Calm Mind, which adds another 2 stat boosts on top of that each time you use it. By pairing it with other moves to keep you alive like Substitute, Roost, and Protect, stored power can snowball really quickly and sweep through opposing teams. Dark types are immune to stored power, but Espather can get around it with Dazzling Gleam or a fighting type Terra Blast. Since it's been boosting its special attack this whole time, these moves also hit pretty hard. Getting Power Trip or stored power to the maximum 860 power isn't really feasible, since one Pokemon can only have so many stat-changing moves at one time. But with the right combination of boosting moves and abilities, they can become plenty strong enough to demolish the opposing team. And you know what? While we're at it, let's talk about Power Trip in reverse, Punishment. Instead of getting stronger alongside your own stat boost, Punishment gains power whenever your opponent boosts their stats. This move starts at 60 base power, but it gains 20 power for each stat stage boost the target has. So if they use Quiver Dance, which boosts 3 stats by 1 stage, Punishment will double to 120 power. This move has a lower cap than Power Trip and Stored Power though. The highest power this move can have is 200, which will happen if the target has a combined 7 positive stat changes. So if they use, I don't know, Swords Dance 3 times and Defense Curl once, Punishment's power will max out. The next moves on this list are, well, Self-Destruct and Explosion again. Before Gen 5, they used to be even stronger than they are now. During the damage calculation, the game sneakily cut the target's defense stat in half, making them do twice as much damage. That made them effectively 400 and 500 power respectively. That's because the highest power value the game is able to store is 255, so they had to use a workaround to make an even stronger move. Back when my friend Elias and I were trying to find our footing here on YouTube, we did some Pokemon Showdown videos, where we fought each other in random battles. I specifically remember in one Gen 1 battle, I got 2 Pokemon with exploding moves, and I clicked them both right away on the first 2 turns of the battle. Did I knock out 2 of his Pokemon in exchange? Nope. Was it fun? Absolutely. Don't go looking for that video, by the way, it doesn't exist. I never actually got around to editing it. I think it's a real shame these moves don't have your defenses anymore. They weren't all that overpowered, because you need to sacrifice your own Pokemon to take out your opponent. If you bring in a Pokemon that's bulky enough, or a Ghost type that's immune to them, you can survive the explosion. It's not an auto-kill button. Just let me launch figurative nuclear weapons in my video game, man. This next move sees use in Magikarp solo challenges and basically nowhere else. If you've watched Madrybread or J-Rose11 try to beat a Pokemon game with only a Magikarp, you'll be familiar with how Flail works. This move was introduced in Gen 2, and it gets stronger if the user has less HP. At full health, it'll be just 20 power. But as you take damage, it starts to skyrocket. If you have 4.17% of your HP or less remaining, Flail maxes out at 200 power, the same as Self-Destruct. For some reason, the thresholds are different in Gen 4 and Gen 4 only. Couldn't tell you why. In any case, that adds a layer of strategy to Magikarp solo runs. Because in most Pokemon challenges, whether it be a Nuzlocke or a solo run or what have you, it's optimal to start every fight at full health. But since Flail maxes out miles stronger than Magikarp's other attack, Tackle, you might consider starting certain battles at dangerously low health instead, which will get you a ton of mileage out of Flail. Fun fact, in Generation 2, Flail skips certain steps in the damage calculation. It'll never land a critical hit, and it'll always deal the exact same amount of damage. For most other moves, the game will apply a random multiplier at the end of the damage calculation, calculation, between 0.85 and 1. So the vast majority of the time, the moves you use aren't doing the full amount of damage. Flail always does the maximum damage, skipping the random multiplier. But from Gen 3 onwards, it acts like any other standard attacking move. You can score crits with it now, but it's also subject to damage rolls now, which will usually make it slightly weaker. Flail also has a clone. Reversal was introduced in Gen 2 as well, and it's a fighting type move with the same properties. This one sees basically no use ever, since every Pokemon with access to it can, you know, learn other moves. You use Flail with Magikarp because you basically have no other options. It can't learn Hydro Pump or Bounce in most generations. You use Reversal if you hate yourself. These moves are basically the inverse of Water Spout, Eruption, and Dragon Energy, which are stronger the more HP the user has. But these moves max out at 150 power, so they don't get as strong as Self-Destruct. These next moves are incredibly specific, so much so that they'll never be over 200 base power in most environments. Dragon Rush and Flying Press are 100 base power moves, and Double Iron Bash is 60 power but it hits twice, so effectively 120. All of these moves share a niche property. If the target has previously used the move Minimize to boost their evasion, these moves will deal double damage. Starting in Gen 6, these moves also ignore the evasion boosts, bypassing accuracy checks altogether to never miss. And this only works with Minimize, not Double Team. Flying Press and Dragon Rush double to 200 power in this case, and Double Iron Bash doubles to 240 power. Quadruple Iron Bash? Heat Crash and Heavy Slam can also reach 200 power with the Minimize boost. If the user is at least 4 times heavier than the target, these moves will be 100 power, which doubles to 200 on the Minimize user. If they're 5 times heavier, they'll be 120 power, doubling to 240. There's actually one last move that doubles to over 200 power due to Minimize. Shadow Force was introduced in Gen 4, and it's 120 power, so it doubles to 240. Except the Minimize boost only applies to it in Generation 6. Yeah, they left it out when it was introduced, decided to add the Minimize boost in X and Y, and took it away again in the next generation. I'd love to provide a theory for why that is, but I got nothing, man. Maybe Yveltal messed with the vibes in Gen 6, who knows? For more nonsense like this, subscribe to Me Plays Games, and consider becoming a channel member for as little as $2.99 a month. Alright, let's do another fun one. Rollout and Ice Ball start at 30 base power, but they can last up to 5 turns. Each hit is twice as strong as the last one, so the second hit is 60 power, then 120, 240, and the final hit is 480, nearly as strong as pre-nerf Explosion. And that's all well and good, but it gets even stronger than that. If the user had used Defense Curl previously, Rollout and Ice Ball will double in power again. In other words, the first hit is 60 power, and if you get all 5 off in a row without missing, the last hit will be 960 power, which is stronger than anything else in this video. If you've ever seen people try to come up with setups to do the most damage in one hit in Pokemon, chances are they're using either Rollout or Ice Ball, and for good reason. By successfully pulling off a 5-turn Rollout and stacking as many damage modifiers as you can think of, it's possible to do millions or even billions of HP's worth of damage. Rollout and Ice Ball also have a glitch associated with them, and if you use it, you can do astronomical damage with any other attack. This glitch is called Rollout Storage, and it's only possible in Gen 7 and earlier versions of Sword and Shield. If you successfully use Rollout 5 times, but one hit breaks Mimikyu's Disguise or Ice-Q's Ice Face, the multiplier will get confused. It won't double in that case, so once you reach the end of the move, the game thinks there's still another hit of Rollout to come, but it will let you select another move. So the next move will get the final multiplier applied to it. If the user had used Defense Curl previously, that multiplier is 32 times, and it can be applied to any attacking move in the game. By using 5 Rollouts, one of which breaks a Disguise or Ice Face, a move like Earthquake will be boosted to a whopping 3,200 power. But it turns out the best move to pair Rollout Storage with is Sacred Fire. By storing this multiplier, you can potentially do billions upon billions of damage. A setup was found in Gen 7, and it's absolutely incredible. By using Rollout Storage with a camera up the nose Defense Curl and Sacred Fire, and boosting the move further with Harsh Sunlight, 3 Helping Hand boosts with the help of Rangaru's Instruct, Power Trick and Power Split to give it a higher attack stat, Flower Gift, Fluffy, a critical hit boosted by Sniper, the same type attack bonus, 4 stages of attack boost by using Charm, Baby Doll Eyes twice, then Topsy-Turvy to invert the stat drops, a held Life Orb, and making a level 1 Smeargle a triple Ice, Steel, Grass type, with the help of a Alolan Sand Splash, Reflect type, and Forest Curse, Sacred Fire will do 2,009,741,660 damage. You might notice that in this demonstration I found, the camera up is level 88, and its attack stat isn't maxed out. That's because the game has a hard limit on how much damage can be dealt at once. That 2 billion damage setup is just 1,000 points less than the absolute maximum, before it overflows and wraps around to a low number. So to make sure the damage doesn't go off the charts, you have to lower Camera Up's level and not quite max out its stats. Without that hard cap, it would be possible to deal over 20 billion damage. Before Rollout Storage was discovered, setups to do millions of damage used Shuckle instead, and these ones are glitchless. Shuckle has the 3rd lowest attack stat in the whole game, but it can use Power Trick to swap it with its defense stat, which is the highest in the game. By using Mimic to teach Shuckle Ice Ball temporarily, it can do over 700 million damage. This setup includes changing Shuckle's ability twice, first to Protean to give it stab on Ice Ball, then to Pure Power to double its attack stat. Like the camera up setup, we also take advantage of Flower Gift and Helping Hand. Holding a Metronome boosts the power of moves each time you use them in a row, maxing out at a 2x boost on the 5th one. Then by maxing out Chuckle's attack stat and minimizing a level 1 Noibat's defense stat, then giving Noibat the grass type with Forest Curse to make it 8 times weak to ice, a critical 5th turn Ice Ball will do 721,899,685 damage. So even without the storage glitch, Rollout and Ice Ball are nothing to sneeze at. Next up, a segment where I will not be making any political jokes. Let's talk about Trump Card. This move starts at 40 base power, and it never misses, which is nice. The move gets stronger the fewer power points it has. If you have 3 uses left after executing the move, it'll be 50 power, then that escalates to 60, 80, and finally 200 power on the last use. This move can also be called by things like Metronome and Assist, but it's not great in that situation. If you use another move to call Trump Card, its damage will be based on the power points of that other move. Metronome and Assist both have more than 5 power points, so most of the time it'll hit for just 40 power. Here's a trio of moves you'll find in the middle of your playthrough and nowhere else. Stockpile, Spit Up, and Swallow. Before you can use either of the other moves, you have to store energy by using Stockpile. Each time you stockpile, your physical and special defense stats are boosted by 1 stage. The maximum you can stockpile at once is 3. Then you can either use Swallow to heal yourself, potentially back up to full, or do absurd damage with Spit Up. Each time you use Stockpile, Spit Up gets stronger. At first I thought it might gain 40, 50, 60 power at a time. Nope, not even close. Each stockpile adds 100 base power to Spit Up. So if you stockpile 3 times, Spit Up will be 300 power. So this mid-game move can potentially hit with the power of 3 Earthquakes. Of course, the downside is when you use Swallow or Spit Up, you have to build up your stockpile count again. So it's like the least spammable move in the game. Obviously, most Pokemon that can learn one of these moves can learn all 3, but there are some exceptions. Dewpider and the Quillfish line can learn Stockpile and Spit Up, but not Swallow, and Guzzlord, the Snorlax line, and the Garbodor line can learn Stockpile and Swallow, but not Spit Up. Every other Pokemon that can learn Stockpile can learn the other 2, so they have an option for what to do with their stored up energy. Next up are 2 Ghost-type moves I've already talked about on this channel, Annihilape's Rage Fist and Houndstone and Basculegion's Last Respects. Rage Fist gains another 50 power each time Primeape or Annihilape gets hit, maxing out at 350. By using moves like Bulk Up, Drain Punch, and Rest, and items like Leftovers and Chesto Berry, you can keep Annihilape alive long enough to max out Rage Fist's power. In a similar vein, Last Respects gains 50 power each time one of the user's teammates faints in battle. Ordinarily, that means if you save Houndstone or Basculegion for the end of a battle, Last Respects will be 300 power, which is the 50 it started with, plus 50 for each of the 5 dead teammates. That's plenty strong enough to sweep through whatever's left of the opposing team, but we can go above and beyond. Last Respects doesn't actually cap at 5 fainted teammates, it maxes out at 100. So if you use the move Revival Blessing or various reviving items from your bag and allow your Pokemon to faint 100 times in a single battle, Last Respects can max out at 5,050 power, which is absurd. Is it plausible to let your teammates get KO'd and revive them so many times? God no, but it could theoretically happen. Houndstone can also learn Fighting and Dark-type coverage, which allows it to hit Pokemon that resist or are immune to Last Respects. In Generation 8, Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus aren't able to Dynamax, but they have moves that punish opponents that do. Behemoth Blade, Behemoth Bash, and Dynamax Cannon are 100 power, but they double to 200 if the target is Dynamaxed. Of course, there's a caveat to these moves. Dynamax only exists in Generation 8. So in Gen 9, these are just standard Steel and Dragon-type moves, with no secondary effects. They're still better than most other moves of their respective types, so it's not the worst thing in the universe. Next up is Echoed Voice. It starts at 40 base power, and it gains another 40 power each turn it's used in a row. Unlike Rollout and Ice Ball though, the Echoed Voice counter goes up if any Pokemon on the battlefield uses it. So in the negative 85% chance you and your opponent both have the move, you using it on turn 1 will also power up their Echoed Voice on turn 2. With Rollout, each Pokemon using it has to build up their own counter. If Echoed Voice is used 5 turns in a row, it'll max out at 200 power for any Pokemon that has it. And finally, the first move that can hit 10 times in 1 turn, Maushold's signature move, Population Bomb. The game runs accuracy checks on every single hit, but if you manage to land all 10, it'll be 200 power. You can also hold a Wide Lens to boost each hit's accuracy from 90 to 99%. It's not the greatest move in the universe though, because hitting 10 times means 10 chances for your opponents to punish you for making contact. If you hit a static Zapdos with Population Bomb, you're virtually guaranteed to be paralyzed by the time it's over. If you hit a Pokemon holding a Rocky Helmet, well, you just die. Well, that's all I got for today. Leave a comment and let me know what other videos you'd like to see me make, and consider supporting the channel. I'll see you all next time. Good night, fellas. Sleep well.